The sand burned even through the reinforced soles of my boots. Above, three suns blazed in unholy trinity, turning the arena floor into a furnace that could cook meat in minutes. The crowd's roar crashed over me like a physical force. 50,000 throats screaming for blood in a language that sounded like grinding metal. My name is Daniel Cross, and I was about to die for their entertainment. The manacles around my wrists weighed at least 20 pounds each, designed not just to restrain but to exhaust. Every movement sent fresh agony through my ribs, where the Vrake guards had worked me over during interrogation. 3, maybe 4 were broken. Each breath felt like swallowing glass. The arena stretched out before me, a perfect circle of death carved from the bedrock of this god-forsaken planet. The walls rose 60 feet high, smooth as silk and impossible to climb. Above them, the spectators pressed against energy barriers that shimmered in the heat, their faces a blur of scales, tusks, and other features evolution had never bothered trying on Earth. I'd been here 6 days. 6 days since my reconnaissance craft had been caught in an interdiction field and dragged down to the surface. 6 days since I'd learned that the Vrake Empire didn't believe in prisoner exchanges or ransoms. They believed in entertainment. The massive gates at the far end of the arena groaned open, and my executioner stepped into the light. She moved like liquid mercury, each step calculated and precise. The Vrak were humanoid enough to trigger that uncanny valley response, with their 4 arms and skin that shifted between deep purple and black, depending on the angle of light. This one stood 7 feet tall, her lower arms crossed while the upper pair hung loose at her sides. The ceremonial armor she wore left her midriff exposed, showing battle scars that crisscrossed her abdomen like a roadmap of violence. The crowd's roar doubled in volume. They knew her. They loved her. She stopped 20 feet away, studying me with eyes that held all the warmth of deep space. The translator implant behind my ear crackled to life as she spoke. Human Daniel Cross, former pilot of the Terran Alliance. You stand accused of espionage against the Vrake Empire. Her voice carried across the arena without amplification, cold and precise as a surgical laser. This is not a trial. This is an exhibition. I tried to straighten despite the pain. If I was going to die, I'd do it standing. Nice speech. You practiced that in front of a mirror? Something flickered across her features. Surprise? Maybe. The Vrake didn't expect their victims to talk back. I am Zyra, executor of the Sand Court. You will scream for the crowd's pleasure. Then you will die. Zyra. I tested the name, buying time while I scanned the arena for anything I could use. There was nothing, just sand and death. Pretty name for a professional murderer. She tilted her head slightly, a gesture so human it was disturbing. You waste your final moments on words? Got anything better to do? The accommodations here are terrible. No room service. The bed's basically a stone slab. And don't get me started on the bathroom situation. The crowd had gone quiet, confused by the delay. They'd paid to see blood, not conversation. High above, on a platform that jutted out over the arena like a vulture's perch, I could see him, High Warlord Koresh. Even from this distance, his presence felt like a weight pressing down. He was massive even by Vrake standards, his forearms thick as tree trunks, his scales so dark they seemed to absorb light. He'd built this empire on brutality and spectacle, and I was today's main event. Koresh made a gesture, and Zyra's posture shifted. The demonstration begins, she said, and started walking toward me. I backed away, but there was nowhere to go. The arena was a killing floor, and she was the blade. Look, I said, I get it. You've got a job to do, but maybe we could talk about this. I'm sure there's been some kind of misunderstanding. She didn't respond. Her upper right hand went to the weapon at her hip, a curved blade that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of obsidian. But she didn't draw it. Instead, she continued her approach, unhurried, inevitable. "The warlord wants to hear you scream," she said, when she was close enough that I could see my reflection in her black eyes. "The crowd demands suffering. You will provide both." "I'm not much of a screamer," I said. "Disappointing, really. Bad for ratings." Her lower left hand shot out faster than I could track, catching me in the stomach. The air exploded from my lungs, and I doubled over, which was exactly what she wanted. Her knee came up, connecting with my already damaged ribs. The pain was exquisite, a symphony of agony that turned my vision white, but I bit down on the scream, trying to escape. I'd be damned if I'd give them the satisfaction. I dropped to one knee in the sand, gasping. She circled me like a predator, patient and methodical. "Your defiance is pointless," she said. "Everyone screams eventually." "Maybe," I wheezed. "But I'm stubborn. It's kind of my thing." She struck again. This time, a backhanded blow that sent me sprawling. Sand filled my mouth, mixed with the copper taste of blood. The crowd was getting restless. They wanted their show. I pushed myself up on shaking arms. "That all you got?" Her expression didn't change, but something in her stance did. She moved behind me, and I heard the whisper of steel leaving its sheath. This was it. She was done playing. But instead of the killing blow, her foot connected with my broken ribs in a precise kick that should have destroyed me. The impact was tremendous, driving all the air from my lungs, sending me rolling across the sand. And then something strange happened. The rib that had been grinding against my lung, making every breath agony for the past 6 days, suddenly shifted, clicked back into place with an audible pop. The relief was so unexpected, so immediate, that a sound escaped me. Not a scream, a laugh. I lay there in the sand, breathing deeply for the first time since my capture, and I laughed. The arena went silent. Zyra stood over me, her blade half drawn, confusion written across her alien features. "You laugh?" I rolled onto my back, still chuckling despite the dozen other pains competing for attention. "You fixed it. The rib. It's been killing me for days, and you just kicked it back into place." I looked up at her, grinning through the blood. "Thanks." The word hung in the air between us like a grenade with the pin pulled. In the decades of the arena's existence, in the thousands of executions and exhibitions, no one had ever thanked their executioner. Zyra took a step back, her weapon sliding back into its sheath with a soft whisper. For a moment, just a heartbeat. Her mask slipped. I saw something underneath. Confusion. Yes, but something else. Something that looked almost human. The crowd began to murmur, their bloodlust momentarily confused by this unexpected turn. High above, Koresh leaned forward on his throne, his 4 hands gripping the armrests. Zyra's face hardened again, the moment passing. "Get up!" I struggled to my feet, still amazed by how much easier it was to breathe. "You know where I come from. When someone does you a favor, you usually buy them a drink." Silence. But there was less force behind it now. She was off script, and we both knew it. She struck again, but this time, I saw it coming. Not fast enough to dodge completely, but enough to roll with it. The blow that should have shattered my jaw merely split my lip. "You're holding back," I said, spitting blood onto the sand. "You know nothing. I know you could have killed me 3 times already." I circled, slowly, keeping her in sight. "I know that kick was precisely placed to fix, not further damage. I know you're not what you pretend to be." Her upper arms tensed. "You will be silent." "Or what? You'll kill me. That was always the plan." I stopped moving, facing her directly. "But now you're curious, aren't you? No one's ever thanked you before. No one's ever seen you as anything but a monster." The crowd was growing louder, demanding action. Koresh stood from his throne, his voice booming across the arena through hidden amplifiers. Executor Zira, the human still stands. This is unacceptable. She turned to face the warlord's platform, her forearms spreading in a formal salute. The demonstration continues. High Warlord, the human is more resilient than expected. Then break him! She turned back to me, and for a second, our eyes met. There was something there, a flicker of regret, warning. She moved faster than before, a blur of motion that my human reflexes couldn't match. Her fist connected with my solar plexus, driving me to my knees. Her knee came up, catching me in the chest, sending me backwards into the sand. But even as she rained blows down, there was a strange precision to it. Every strike hurt like hell, but none were lethal. None were even permanently damaging. She was putting on a show, but she was also pulling her punches. The crowd loved it. They roared their approval as I struggled and fell, rose and fell again. Blood painted the sand in abstract patterns, but I didn't scream. And more importantly, I didn't die. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, she stood over me as I lay gasping in the sand. Her chest was heaving slightly, the first sign of exertion I'd seen from her. "Scream," she said, quietly enough that only I could hear. "Give them what they want, and this can end." I turned my head, looking up at her through one eye that wasn't swollen shut. "No. Stubborn fool, you will die here. Maybe, but I'll die on my terms." She raised her foot, positioning it over my ribs. The crowd held its breath. This was it, the killing blow they'd been waiting for. Her foot came down, but at the last second, she pulled the force. It connected with enough impact to look convincing from the stands, but not enough to do real damage. The crowd erupted in disappointment. Koresh's voice thundered across the arena. "Enough! Executor Zira! Finish the human now, or face the consequences of failure." She drew her blade in one fluid motion, the obsidian edge catching the light of the three suns. She knelt beside me, the blade pressed against my throat. "I'm sorry," she whispered, so quietly I almost missed it. But instead of drawing the blade across my throat, she grabbed my hair with her lower left hand, yanking my head back to expose my neck to the crowd. The blade pressed closer, a thin line of blood welling up. The crowd began to chant, "Death! Death! Death!" Zyra's face was inches from mine. This close. I could see that her eyes weren't actually black. They were a deep purple, like the sky just after sunset on Earth. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why won't you scream?" "Because," I whispered back. "I'm human. We're stupidly stubborn. It's kind of our thing." Something changed in her expression, a decision being made. She stood abruptly, pulling me up with her. The blade moved away from my throat, though she kept it raised for the crowd to see. "High Warlord," she called out, her voice carrying across the arena. "This human is unusual. He does not break like the others. I request permission to extend the demonstration." The crowd fell silent. This was unprecedented. Koresh's form was still on the platform, backlit by the suns. When he spoke, his voice was cold as the space between stars. "Explain." The crowd grows bored with quick deaths. This human's defiance could provide entertainment for days. Let me work on him slowly. Let the anticipation build. When he finally breaks, the satisfaction will be that much greater. It was a gamble. Koresh ruled through fear and spectacle, but he was also a showman. He understood the value of anticipation. The silence stretched out, taut as a wire about to snap. "Very well," Koresh finally said. "You have 3 days. Executor. If the human has not screamed by then, you will take his place in the arena." The crowd erupted, some in approval, others in disappointment at being denied their immediate gratification. Zyra bowed deeply, then grabbed my arm with one of her lower hands. "Move," she commanded, loud enough for the nearby spectators to hear. Then, quieter. "Don't resist." She half dragged, half carried me toward a gate I hadn't noticed before, smaller than the main entrances. As we passed through it, leaving the arena behind, I caught a glimpse of Koresh on his platform. Even from that distance, I could feel his attention like a weight. The passage beyond the gate was mercifully cool after the furnace of the arena. Zira didn't slow down, pulling me through a maze of corridors that all looked the same to me. Finally, we reached a cell that was marginally better than the hole they'd been keeping me in. There was an actual cot instead of just stone, and a bucket of water that looked almost clean. She pushed me inside, then stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the harsh lighting of the corridor. "Why?" I asked. She was quiet for a long moment. "You thanked me. In 5 decades of killing for the crowd's pleasure, no one has ever thanked me." "It was just a word." "No," she said, stepping back. "It was recognition, that even a monster can accidentally do good." The door slammed shut, leaving me in darkness. But for the first time since my capture, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. The next morning, or what passed for morning in this place, I woke to the sound of the door opening. Zira entered, carrying a tray with food that actually looked edible, and a medical kit. "Sit," she commanded, setting the tray on the floor. I pushed myself up, wincing. Everything hurt, but it was a manageable hurt. "Come to practice your torture techniques?" "The cameras in this cell are disabled," she said, opening the medical kit. "Maintenance error that won't be discovered for days." I watched as she pulled out bandages and some kind of salve that smelled like mint and sulfur. "Why are you doing this?" She didn't answer immediately, instead focusing on cleaning the cuts on my face with surprising gentleness. "You interest me, human. Daniel. My name is Daniel." "I know your name." She applied the salve to a particularly nasty gash on my forehead. It burned at first, then numbed the pain entirely. "Tell me about Earth." The question caught me off guard. "What?" "Your world. Tell me about it." So I did. As she worked on my injuries, I told her about blue skies and green grass, about oceans that stretched to the horizon and mountains that touched the clouds, about cities that never slept and forests that had never known the touch of civilization. She listened without interrupting, her 4 hands working with practiced efficiency. When I talked about rain, she paused. "Water falling from the sky," she said, as if testing the concept. "We have stories of such things, from before the Empire, before the sands claimed everything." "What happened?" She resumed her work. "War. It always comes back to war. The Vrake were not always as we are now. We were different. Softer, perhaps. Then came the Great Burning, when our enemies salted our world with atomic fire. Those who survived adapted, became harder, crueler. Koresh's grandfather united the clans under one rule: strength above all. Mercy is weakness. Compassion is death." "But you don't believe that." She stopped, looking at me directly. "What I believe doesn't matter. I am what the Empire made me." "Are you?" She stood abruptly, packing away the medical supplies. "Rest. Tomorrow, you return to the arena. The crowd expects a show. And you'll give them one?" "I'll do what I must to survive, as will you." She moved toward the door, then paused. "Your ribs, are they truly better?" I took a deep breath, marveling again at the absence of grinding pain. "Yeah, still tender, but functional. It was the strangest thing. That kick should have destroyed me. But instead, I know anatomy," she said quietly. "All executors do. We must know how to break bodies efficiently." She turned to look at me. "But knowledge of how to break can also be knowledge of how to heal. Sometimes." "Was it intentional?" She didn't answer, but something in her expression suggested it hadn't been. Not consciously. Anyway. "Zira," I called as she reached for the door. "Thank you." Again? She froze for a moment, then left without a word. The rest of the day passed slowly. I ate the food she'd brought, did what exercises I could manage in the small space, and tried not to think about what tomorrow would bring. The arena, the crowd, the inevitable end. But I kept coming back to that moment when she'd paused after I thanked her. The look in her eyes. There was something there, something struggling against decades of conditioning. That night, she returned. This time, she brought not just food, but also a small device I didn't recognize. Sonic shower, she explained, setting it up in the corner. You smell like death. Charming. It's practical. The crowd prefers their victims presentable at the start. I used the device, which cleaned better than any water shower I'd ever had, while she sat with her back to me, ostensibly standing guard. Can I ask you something? I said as I dressed in the clean prisoner's garb she'd provided. You may ask. Have you ever refused, said no to an execution? She was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Once. What happened? I took their place in the arena. She turned to face me, and I saw a scar I hadn't noticed before, running from her left temple down to her jaw. I survived, obviously, but the lesson was learned. Refusal is not an option. But you're refusing now, in a way, keeping me alive. For 3 days only, and only because I convinced Koresh it would make better entertainment. Still, it's something. She stood, moving closer. You don't understand. Daniel, this world, this empire, it doesn't allow for something. There is only survival or death. I've chosen survival for 5 decades. I've killed more beings than you can imagine. I am not a good person. I am not capable of being saved or redeemed. I don't believe that. Then you're a fool. Maybe. But I'm a fool who's still breathing because of you. She reached out with one of her upper hands, fingers stopping just short of touching my face. That breath is temporary. In 2 days, you will die. If not by my hand, then by another's. That is the way of the arena. Then why help me at all? Her hand dropped. Because for 50 years, I've been a monster, and then a broken human thanked me for kicking him. A sound escaped her that might have been a laugh. The absurdity of it, the impossible kindness of it. You made me remember that I was once something else, before the arena, before the empire claimed me. What were you? Dead, she said simply. That person is dead. She died the day the empire burned her family for harboring rebels. The weight of that revelation hung between us. I wanted to say something, anything, but words felt inadequate. Tomorrow, she said, moving toward the door. The crowd will expect progress. You will need to show pain. Scream if you can. It will buy us time. I can't. Can't or won't? Both. It's not in me to give them what they want. She studied me for a long moment. Then tomorrow will be difficult. For both of us. After she left, I lay on the cot, staring at the ceiling. 2 more days. 2 more days of whatever strange game we were playing. And then what? Death, most likely. But somehow, that didn't seem as certain as it had this morning. I thought about Earth, about the mission that had brought me here. Reconnaissance, they'd called it. Gather intelligence on Vrake military positions. Report back. Simple. Clean. Everything had gone wrong when the interdiction field caught my ship. Now, my crew was dead. My ship was scrap. And I was the evening entertainment for an empire built on blood. But I'd found something unexpected in this hellhole. A crack in the armor. Zyra might think herself beyond redemption. But I'd seen the conflict in her eyes. The empire hadn't completely destroyed who she used to be. It was buried, maybe. Crushed under decades of survival. But not gone. 2 more days. Maybe that would be enough. Enough for what? I wasn't sure. But as I drifted off to sleep, I held on to that spark of hope. Tomorrow would bring the arena again. the crowd, the blood. But it would also bring Zira, and the strange connection we'd forged in this place of death. She'd kicked my broken rib to make me scream. Instead, she'd given me the ability to breathe again. The irony wasn't lost on me. In trying to break me, she'd accidentally begun to fix something. Not just in me, but in herself. 2 more days. The second day in the arena was worse than the first. Not because of the pain, though there was plenty of that, but because of the performance we had to maintain. Zira circled me like a predator, her movements fluid and deliberate. The crowd had been promised progress, and she was delivering. Her strikes were theatrical now, designed to look devastating from the stands, while actually distributing the impact across my body in ways that minimized real damage. "Show them something," she hissed as she passed close, her fist connecting with my shoulder in a blow that spun me around but didn't dislocate anything. I stumbled, fell to one knee, then pushed myself back up. The crowd roared approval. They liked seeing the human struggle, liked seeing him refuse to stay down. It was all part of the show. But Koresh wasn't satisfied. I could feel his presence on the platform above, a dark weight pressing down on the arena. He wanted screams. He wanted submission. And we weren't giving him either. Zira grabbed me by the throat with one of her upper hands, lifting me off my feet. The crowd went wild. This was what they'd come to see. She pulled me close, and for a moment, we were face to face. "Tonight," she whispered, "be ready." Then she slammed me into the sand. The impact drove all the air from my lungs, and for a moment, I couldn't move. She stood over me, waiting. When I finally managed to roll onto my side, coughing and gasping, she placed her foot on my ribs. Not the broken ones she'd fixed, but the other side. "Any last words, human?" she called out, loud enough for the crowd to hear. I looked up at her, then past her to where Koresh sat on his throne. "Yeah," I croaked. "Your empire is built on sand, and sand shifts." It wasn't a scream, but it was defiance, and the crowd ate it up. They loved the drama of it, the human who wouldn't break even in the face of death. Zira pressed down with her foot, just enough to make me gasp. But again, she held back from doing real damage. We were walking a dangerous line, and we both knew it. Koresh stood from his throne. "Enough theatrics, Executor. Break him or be broken." She removed her foot and stepped back, bowing toward the platform. "As you command, High Warlord." She drew her blade, the obsidian edge gleaming in the triple sunlight. The crowd fell silent, anticipating the killing blow. Instead, she knelt beside me and pressed the blade against my arm, drawing a thin line of blood. Then another on my other arm. Shallow cuts. Painful, but not dangerous. She was marking me, making it look like torture, while avoiding anything that would actually incapacitate me. "Scream," she said quietly. "Give them something." I gritted my teeth and remained silent. She sighed, then stood. "The human requires more intensive work. High Warlord, permission to continue in the detention level, where the crowd cannot see but will hear." It was a clever ploy. The detention level had cells specifically designed for torture, but they also had privacy. The crowd would imagine horrors beyond what they could see, and their imagination would do most of the work. Koresh considered this. "Granted, but I want results. Executor, tomorrow is your final day." Guards appeared at the arena gates, moving to escort us. As they approached, Zira grabbed my arm, hauling me to my feet. "Move!" she commanded. The journey to the detention level was a blur of corridors and security checkpoints. The guards stayed close, their weapons trained on me even though I could barely walk. Finally, we reached a cell different from the one I'd been in. This one had restraints on the walls, drainage grates in the floor, and various implements hanging from hooks that I tried not to look at too closely. "Leave us," Zira commanded the guards. "Executor, the warlord's orders were—" She turned on them, all four arms spreading in a threatening display. The warlord ordered results. I will deliver them. Now go. They left, reluctantly. As soon as the door sealed, Zira's entire demeanor changed. She moved quickly to a panel on the wall, inputting a code. Audio surveillance will play screams from previous sessions, she said. We have maybe an hour before anyone checks in person. An hour for what? She turned to face me, and there was something different in her eyes. Determination mixed with fear. To tell you the truth, and to make a choice. She pulled out a small medical scanner, running it over my injuries. First, let me actually fix what I've done today. As she worked, applying more of that numbing salve to the various cuts and bruises, she began to talk. I knew your brother. The words hit me like a physical blow. I jerked away from her touch. What? Marcus Cross. He was brought here 8 years ago. Similar circumstances to yours. Reconnaissance pilot. Shot down over restricted space. My throat felt tight. Marcus died in a training accident. The Alliance said... The Alliance lied. Or perhaps they simply didn't know. He survived the crash. Was captured. Brought here. She continued working on my injuries, not meeting my eyes. I was assigned to execute him. The cell felt suddenly cold. You killed my brother? No. She looked up then, and I saw pain in those purple eyes. I tried to save him, as I'm trying to save you. I don't understand. She moved to sit on the single bench in the cell, her 4 hands clasped together. Your brother was different from the usual prisoners. Like you. He wouldn't break, wouldn't scream. But more than that, he talked to me. Treated me not as a monster, but as a person. It had been so long since anyone had done that. She paused, lost in memory. We fell in love. It was impossible. Insane. But it happened. For 3 months. I managed to keep him alive, always finding excuses, ways to delay his execution. We would meet in secret, in the maintenance tunnels beneath the arena. He told me about Earth, about you. He said you were stubborn, that you never gave up on anything. Marcus never mentioned. How could he? When would he have had the chance? She stood, pacing now. We planned to escape together. I had contacts in the underground, rebels who opposed Koresh's rule. Everything was arranged, but someone betrayed us. Marcus was executed publicly, and She touched the scar on her face. I was given a choice. Die with him or continue serving, knowing that my failure had led to his death. You chose to live. I chose to survive. There's a difference. She turned to me, and I could see tears in her eyes. Vrek could cry, apparently. When I saw your name on the prisoner manifest, I couldn't believe it. Marcus's brother, here, in the same situation. It felt like fate, or perhaps a chance for redemption. That's why you've been helping me. At first, I was just curious. You looked so much like him. But you were different too, harder, perhaps. More cynical. But then you thanked me, and I saw him in you. The same impossible kindness in the face of cruelty. I didn't know what to say. Marcus had been dead for 8 years, or so I'd thought. To learn he'd been here, had fallen in love, had tried to escape. It was too much to process. The underground, I said finally. The rebels, they still exist? Yes. Stronger now than they were then. Koresh's rule has grown more brutal, and more Vrek have begun to question the old ways. They're planning something big, and they need a symbol, a spark to light the fire. Let me guess, a human who won't break? A human who makes a Vrek executor question everything she's been taught. She moved closer, reaching out to touch my face with one of her hands. Daniel, we can't escape. Not the way Marcus and I planned. The security is too tight now. But we can do something else. We can use the arena against them. How? Tomorrow is the final day. Koresh will demand your death, and the crowd will expect a spectacle. What if we give them one they don't expect? You mean fight back? I mean truly fight. Not me trying to kill you, but us fighting together. Against the guards. Against the system. We'll die, certainly. But the broadcast goes out to every world in the Empire. Billions will see a human and a Vrek standing together against tyranny. A symbol. A beginning. I thought about it. It was insane, suicidal. But then again, I was going to die anyway. At least this way. It would mean something. There's more, she said, moving to check the door. The rebels have people in position. If we can create enough chaos, they'll act. It won't be a full revolution. Not yet. But it will be a start. And you're willing to die for this? She turned back to me, and there was peace in her expression. I've been dead for 8 years, Daniel. Since the day I watched your brother die and did nothing. Tomorrow, I finally get to live again, even if only for a few minutes. A sound from outside made us both freeze. Footsteps, multiple sets, approaching fast. The hour isn't up, I said. Something's wrong. Zira moved quickly, grabbing me and pushing me against the wall where the restraints were. Play along, she hissed, then louder. Scream, human! I understood immediately and let out a yell that probably wasn't very convincing, but would have to do. She snapped the restraints around my wrists, just as the door burst open. Koresh himself entered, flanked by 6 guards. The warlord had to duck to fit through the doorway, his bulk filling the cell. Progress report, executor, he rumbled, his voice like an avalanche. Zira bowed low. The human is weakening, High Warlord. Another session tomorrow and he will break. Koresh moved closer, studying me. This was the first time I'd been near him, and the sense of power was overwhelming. He radiated violence like heat from a forge. You look remarkably intact for someone being tortured, he observed. I focus on psychological torment. High Warlord. Physical pain has proven ineffective with this one. Has it? One of his massive hands reached out, grabbing my jaw and forcing me to look up at him. Tell me, human, what has my executor been doing to you? I met his gaze, seeing death there. She's been telling me how I'm going to die, in detail, repeatedly. He squeezed harder. And this doesn't frighten you? Everything dies, I managed to say through his grip. Even empires. His other upper hand moved to my throat, and for a moment, I thought he was going to kill me himself. Then he laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Brave words from dead meat. He released me and turned to Zira. Tomorrow, you will kill him in the arena. No more delays. No more games. He dies at sunset, or you die at nightfall. Yes, High Warlord. He studied her for a long moment, and I saw something pass between them. Suspicion? Knowledge? I couldn't tell. You've served me well for many years, Zira. Don't disappoint me now. I live to serve the Empire. No, he said, moving toward the door. You live because I allow it. Remember that. After he left, we stayed frozen in position for several minutes, making sure he was truly gone. Finally, Zira released the restraints. He knows, I said. He suspects. There's a difference. But she looked shaken. We need to be more careful. Does it matter? Tomorrow we die anyway. It matters how we die. And who sees it? She pulled out a small device from a hidden pocket. Take this. It's a communicator, short range. The rebels will contact you tonight. Won't they detect it? It's biological, grown from Vrek tissue. The scanners will think it's just another bruise. She pressed it against my neck, and I felt a sharp sting as it bonded with my skin. What about you? I have my own preparations to make. She moved to the door, then paused. Daniel, whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know something. What I felt for Marcus was real. And what I'm doing now, it's not just about redemption. It's about hope. The hope that things can be different. That Vrake and humans don't have to be enemies. We won't be enemies, I said. Whatever happens, we face it together. She smiled then. The first genuine smile I'd seen from her. It transformed her face, and for a moment, I could see who she might have been in a different life. Your brother said the same thing. She left, and I was returned to my regular cell. But now everything was different. I knew the truth about Marcus, about Zira, about what tomorrow would bring. That night, as promised, the communicator activated. A voice, speaking accented but clear English, filled my head. Daniel Cross. This is the Resistance. We've been waiting for this moment for 8 years. Who are you? My name is Thane. I knew your brother. Zira has told us of your plan for tomorrow. And we're ready. When you and Zira make your stand, we'll cut the arena's broadcast and replace it with our own. Your defiance, plus evidence of Koresh's crimes we've gathered over the years. It will go out to every world, every screen in the Empire. How many of you are there? Enough. Not enough to win a war, but enough to start one. And after? After, you die as heroes, and the Empire begins to crumble. The communication cut off, leaving me alone with my thoughts. Tomorrow, I would die. But Marcus had died believing in something, and now I understood what that was. Not just escape, not just survival, but change. I thought about Zira, about the pain she'd carried for 8 years. Tomorrow, she'd finally be free of it. We both would. The next morning came too soon, and not soon enough. When Zira arrived to collect me, she was in full ceremonial armor, looking every inch the executioner. But when our eyes met, I saw the woman underneath. Ready? She asked. Ready? As we walked toward the arena, she spoke quietly. When we reach the center, I'll draw my blade. You'll disarm me. That's the signal. How many guards? Usually 20 in the arena itself, more in the stands. But the rebels have people placed. We won't be alone. Just outnumbered 1,000 to 1 instead of 1,000,000. Those are better odds than your brother had. Did he know about the plan to broadcast? No, that came after. His death inspired it. We reached the entrance to the arena. Beyond. I could hear the crowd, larger than before. Word had spread that today, the human would finally die. They'd come to see the end of the show. Zira, I said, stopping just before we entered. Thank you, for everything. She looked at me, and for a moment, the mask slipped entirely. After tomorrow, if there is an after, they'll call us traitors, terrorists, monsters. Let them. We'll know the truth. And what's that? That a human and a Vrak stood together. That we chose each other over our people's hatred. That love and hope are stronger than fear. She reached out with all 4 hands, taking mine in a warrior's clasp. Your brother would be proud. He would be proud of you too. We entered the arena side by side, and the crowd erupted. They sensed something different, something electric in the air, on his platform. Koresh leaned forward, his 4 arms tense. Zira and I moved to the center of the arena. She drew her blade, the obsidian edge catching the light. The crowd fell silent, anticipating the killing blow. I looked at her. She looked at me. And in that moment, we weren't human and Vrake, prisoner and executioner. We were 2 people who'd found something worth dying for. Now, she whispered. I moved faster than I ever had before, grabbing her wrist and twisting. The blade flew from her hand, landing in the sand at my feet. I picked it up, and the crowd gasped. But instead of attacking her, I turned the blade toward the warlord's platform and raised it in defiance. Citizens of the Empire, I shouted, my voice carrying across the arena. You came to see a human die. Instead, you'll see the truth. Zira moved to stand beside me, and together we faced Koresh. The warlord was on his feet, rage distorting his features. "Guards!" he roared. "Kill them both!" The arena gates burst open, guards flooding in. But something else happened too. In the stands, fights broke out. Some of the crowd were on their feet, not cheering for blood but calling for justice. The rebels had revealed themselves. "Together?" Zyra asked, pulling a hidden blade from her armor. "Together." We stood back to back as the guards approached, ready to face whatever came. The broadcast was going out, our message spreading across the Empire. We'd already won, even if we died in the next few minutes. The first guard reached us, and the real fight began. But this time, we weren't performing. We weren't holding back. We were fighting for something greater than survival. We were fighting for the future. The first guard's blade whistled past my ear as I ducked, bringing the obsidian sword up in a diagonal slash that caught him across the chest. His armor sparked and split, energy shields failing against the ancient blade's edge. Zyra moved like liquid death beside me, her four arms creating a whirlwind of destruction that left two guards crumpled in the sand. "Left!" she shouted, and I spun without thinking, driving my blade through a guard who'd been trying to flank us. We moved like we'd been fighting together for years, each covering the other's blind spots, each movement complementing the other's. The crowd was in chaos. What had started as scattered fights had erupted into full riots. I caught glimpses of Rake citizens attacking guards, of banners being torn down, of fire spreading through the upper tiers. The revolution had begun, and we were its catalyst. "The platform!" Zyra yelled over the noise. "Koresh is moving!" I looked up to see the warlord descending from his perch, his personal guard forming a protective wedge around him. But he wasn't retreating. He was coming for us personally. "Is that good or bad?" I asked, parrying a strike from another guard. "Both," Zyra replied, snapping a guard's neck with her lower arms, while her upper ones blocked another attack. "If we kill him, the Empire fragments. If he kills us, the revolution dies with us." More guards poured into the arena. But something was wrong with their formation. Some were turning on others. Rebels, hidden in their ranks, revealing themselves. The arena floor became a battlefield, not between human and Vrake, but between those who supported the old ways and those who wanted change. Through it all, Koresh advanced toward us, inexorable as a glacier. Guards and rebels alike scattered from his path. He carried no weapon, but he didn't need one. His four arms were weapons enough, each one capable of tearing through armor like paper. "Zyra!" he roared, his voice cutting through the battle. "You betray your oath! You betray your people!" She stepped forward, placing herself between Koresh and me. "I betray nothing. You betrayed us all when you turned our warrior culture into a spectacle of cruelty." "Pretty words from a killer," Koresh snarled. "How many have you executed in my name? How many families have you destroyed?" "Too many," she admitted, her voice carrying across the arena. "But it ends today." Koresh laughed, a sound like breaking stone. "You think you can defeat me? I united the clans. I built this empire from ashes. I am—" His words were cut off as an explosion rocked the arena. Part of the upper stands collapsed, sending debris raining down. Through the smoke, I saw shapes descending on cables. More rebels, equipped with energy weapons and determination. "Now!" Thane's voice crackled through the communicator in my neck. "The broadcast is live. Everything you do is being seen across the Empire." Koresh's eyes widened in rage. He charged, moving faster than something that large should be able to move. Zyra met him head-on, and the impact was like thunder. They fought with a brutality that made everything else look like dancing. Koresh's massive fists hammered down while Zyra weaved and struck, using her speed against his strength. But she was losing ground, being pushed back toward me. I moved to help, but a guard intercepted me, his energy staff crackling with lethal current. We traded blows, the obsidian blade leaving deep gouges in his staff. Around us, the battle raged, rebels and loyalists locked in desperate combat. Daniel, Zyra's voice, pained. I drove my knee into the guard's stomach, then brought the blade down on his neck as he doubled over. Turning, I saw Zyra on the ground, Koresh's hand around her throat, lifting her up. You could have been great, Koresh said, his other hands reaching for her arms, preparing to tear her apart. Instead, you chose weakness. No, I said, charging toward them. She chose strength. I leaped, bringing the blade down in a two-handed strike aimed at Koresh's back. He turned at the last second, catching the blade with one hand. The obsidian edge cut deep into his palm, purple blood flowing, but he held it fast. The human thinks himself a warrior, Koresh sneered, still holding Zyra with his other hand. Your brother thought the same. He died crying. Liar, Zyra gasped out. Marcus died laughing at you, at your pathetic empire. Koresh's face contorted with rage. He threw Zyra aside and focused on me, yanking the blade from my hands and tossing it away. His fist connected with my chest, and I felt ribs crack. Not the ones Zyra had fixed, but new ones. The irony wasn't lost on me as I flew backward, landing hard in the sand. He stalked toward me, and I scrambled backward, searching for anything I could use as a weapon. My hand closed on something. A piece of debris from the explosion, sharp and jagged. The human crawls in the sand where he belongs, Koresh said, raising his foot to crush my skull. Hey, Koresh, I wheezed, looking past him. You forgot about her. He started to turn, but Zyra was already there, the obsidian blade in her hands. She drove it through his back, the point emerging from his chest in a spray of purple blood. Koresh stood for a moment, looking down at the blade protruding from his chest with something almost like surprise. Then his legs gave out, and he fell to his knees. Impossible, he gasped, blood frothing at his lips. Zyra walked around to face him, her expression cold. You taught me to be a killer. Congratulations. You succeeded. The Empire will burn without me. Good, I said, pushing myself to my feet despite the pain. Maybe something better will grow from the ashes. Koresh's eyes found mine, and there was something there beyond rage. Fear, maybe, or perhaps just the recognition that his time was over. You are nothing, just another human. Yeah, I agreed. But this nothing human just helped topple your empire. He fell forward, and the warlord of the Vrek Empire died, face down in the sand of his own arena. For a moment, the entire arena went silent. Then someone started clapping. Slowly, sarcastically. We turned to see a figure descending from what remained of the platform. Another Vrek, dressed in the robes of a high administrator. Magnificent, the figure said, and I recognized the voice. It was Thane, the rebel leader. Truly magnificent. The tyrant is dead, and it was broadcast to every world in the Empire. You're Thane? I asked, confused. But you're highly placed? Yes. Revolution rarely comes from the bottom. Human. It comes from those with the power to enable it. He gestured around the arena, where the fighting had stopped. Everyone watching us. And you've enabled it perfectly. This was all planned, Zyra demanded. Not all. Your involvement was unexpected, but useful. The executor who found her conscience. The human who wouldn't break. You've given us the symbols we needed. We're not symbols, I said. We're people. You're both. And that's what makes you powerful. Thane approached us, his forearms spread in a gesture of peace. The Empire is fracturing as we speak. Some worlds will declare independence. Others will fight to maintain the old ways. There will be war. And you'll lead the revolution, Zyra asked, suspicion in her voice. Someone has to, unless you'd prefer the job. She shook her head. I've had enough of killing. Then what will you do? Zyra looked at me, and there was a question in her eyes. That depends. Before I could respond, More explosions rocked the arena. This time, they weren't rebel attacks. Through the smoke, I saw Imperial dropships descending. "Reinforcements," Thane said, his calm demeanor cracking slightly. "We need to go. Now." "Go where?" I asked. "There's a ship waiting, hidden in the old mines outside the city. You can make it if you leave now." "What about the revolution?" "The revolution will continue with or without you. But you've done your part. You've lit the spark. Now go, before they kill you and turn you into martyrs. Live, and let that life be a reminder that change is possible." Zyra grabbed my arm. "He's right, we need to move." We ran, leaving the arena through one of the holes the explosions had created. Behind us, I could hear fighting resuming as Imperial forces clashed with rebels. The revolution had begun in earnest. The streets outside were chaos. Citizens ran in all directions, some fleeing the violence, others rushing to join it. Screens on buildings showed footage of our fight with Koresh, already being replayed and analyzed. In the distance, government buildings burned. "This way," Zyra said, pulling me down a side street. She seemed to know where she was going, navigating the maze of alleys with practiced ease. "You've done this before," I observed. "I've memorized every escape route in the city," she admitted. "I always knew this day might come." We emerged near the city's edge, where the gleaming towers gave way to industrial sprawl. The mines Thane had mentioned were visible in the distance, dark holes in the red cliff face. But between us and them stood a line of Imperial guards. "So much for escaping," I muttered. "Wait," Zyra said, studying the guards. "Something's wrong." She was right. The guards weren't in formation. They were arguing among themselves, some pointing weapons at others. As we watched, a fight broke out, guard against guard. The revolution, I realized. They're choosing sides. We skirted around the conflict, moving through the shadows. Every screen we passed showed the same footage. Our defiance in the arena, Koresh's death, the riots that followed. Commentary scrolled beneath in languages I couldn't read. But the tone was clear. Everything was changing. We reached the mines as the sun, the largest of the three, touched the horizon. The entrance was dark, forbidding. But Zyra didn't hesitate. She led me deep into the tunnels, following marks on the walls that I could barely see. Finally, we emerged into a natural cavern where an old freight shuttle sat waiting. It was beaten and scarred, but the engines hummed with readiness. "Can you fly this?" Zyra asked. "I can fly anything," I said, moving to the cockpit. The controls were different from what I was used to, but the principles were the same. "Where are we going?" "Away," she said, settling into the co-pilot seat. "There's a neutral station 3 systems from here. We can figure out the rest when we're safe." I started the launch sequence, and the shuttle rose on anti-grav lifters. We emerged from the cavern, into a sky painted red by the setting sun. Below, the capital city burned, pillars of smoke rising into the atmosphere. Ships filled the sky, some fleeing, others arriving to join the fight. "Any regrets?" I asked as we climbed toward space. "Many," Zyra replied, "but not about this. Not about us." "Us?" She turned to look at me, and there was something vulnerable in her expression. Is there an us? Or was this just circumstances? I engaged the autopilot and turned to face her fully. "You kicked my broken rib to make me scream. Instead, you gave me the ability to breathe again. Then, you gave me the truth about my brother. Then, you gave me a chance to fight for something meaningful. And finally, you gave me freedom. So yeah, there's an us. If you want there to be..." She reached out with one of her hands, and I took it. Her skin was warm, warmer than I'd expected. "Your brother," she said softly. "He told me about Earth's oceans, how they stretch beyond the horizon, how they're constantly in motion but always there. He said love was like that, constant beneath the changes." "Marcus was always poetic," I said, squeezing her hand. I'm more practical. I just know that when I thought I was going to die, the only thing I regretted was not having more time with you. We have time now. Yeah, we do. The shuttle broke atmosphere, and the stars spread out before us, behind us. The planet receded, its surface flickering with the lights of conflict. The Empire was tearing itself apart, rebuilding itself into something new. Whether that would be better or worse remained to be seen. A message crackled through the communication system. Thane's voice, already sounding tired. Cross, Zyra, if you're listening, know that what you did today changed everything. The Outer Worlds are declaring independence. 3 clan leaders have called for democratic elections. It's messy, it's violent, but it's change. Real change. Will it last? Zyra asked. Nothing lasts forever. But maybe it doesn't have to. Maybe it just has to last long enough for something better to take its place. There was a pause. There's a place for you in the new government if you want it. Both of you. I looked at Zyra, and she shook her head slightly. Thanks, I replied. But we're done with governments for a while. Good luck, Thane. And to you, may you find the peace we're all fighting for. The communication cut off, leaving us in silence. I plotted a course for the neutral station, then leaned back in my seat. So what now? Zyra asked. Now we disappear for a while. Let the galaxy sort itself out. Maybe find one of those planets with oceans Marcus talked about. I'd like that. She was quiet for a moment. Daniel, what I did, all those years, all those executions, you were surviving. And when you got the chance to be something more, you took it. That's what matters. Your brother said something similar. Yeah, well, we crossboys are smart like that. She laughed, a sound I was still getting used to. Is that what you are? Smart? Smart enough to fall for a woman who could kill me with her pinky finger. Any of my fingers, actually. That's reassuring. We jumped to hyperspace, the stars elongating into lines of light, in the strange non-reality of faster-than-light travel. We sat together, 2 unlikely survivors of an impossible situation. You know, I said, this isn't how I expected this mission to go. No? What did you expect? Quick reconnaissance, maybe some light espionage, home in time for dinner. Instead, I got captured, tortured, started a revolution, and fell for my brother's alien girlfriend. Former girlfriend, she corrected. And I fell for you too, so we're even. Even? You literally kicked my ribs in. And fixed them. After breaking them, I fixed the ones that were already broken. The new ones are entirely your fault for fighting a warlord. You're never going to let me forget this, are you? Never, she agreed, then softer. I'll never forget any of it, the good and the bad. It's all part of how we got here. And where is here exactly? She considered this. Free. We're free. For the first time in my life, truly free. The hyperspace jump would take 12 hours. We had food, water, and each other. After everything we'd been through, it felt like luxury. Tell me about Earth, Zyra said eventually. Not the facts, but the feelings. What does rain feel like? What does grass smell like after it's cut? What does snow sound like when it falls? So I told her. I painted pictures with words of blue skies and green fields, of seasons changing and cities sleeping. She listened with the attention of someone trying to memorize every detail, occasionally asking questions that made me think about my homeworld in ways I never had before. Would they accept me there? She asked finally. A wreck on Earth? Some would, some wouldn't. But that's true everywhere, isn't it? There are always those who fear difference and those who embrace it. And you embrace it? I pulled her closer, marveling at how natural it felt despite her extra arms, despite the purple tinge to her skin, despite everything that said we shouldn't fit together. I embrace you. The rest is just details. Just details, she repeated, amused. The former executor of the Vrake Empire, and the human pilot who helped kill a warlord. Just details. When you put it like that, we sound like a bad romance novel. What's a romance novel? Stories about people falling in love despite obstacles. Do they have happy endings? The good ones do. Then we'll have to make sure ours is one of the good ones. We dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the neutral station system. It hung there in space. A massive ring spinning slowly. Ships of a dozen different species docked at its ports. It was a place where anyone could disappear, start over, become someone new. Ready? I asked. For what? The rest of our lives. She smiled, that expression that still transformed her face from warrior to woman. With you, yes. We docked without incident. The station's automated systems accepting our credit transfer without questioning its source. Thane had been generous in his parting gift. As we walked through the station's promenade, beings of various species going about their business, I noticed something. Some recognized us. There were whispers, pointed fingers, even a few salutes. The footage from the arena had spread further than we'd thought. So much for disappearing, I muttered. We'll never truly disappear, Zyra said. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe people need to see that we survived, that we're together despite everything. A young Vrek approached us hesitantly. Couldn't have been more than the equivalent of a teenager. Executor Zira? They asked in accented English. She tensed, but replied calmly. Not anymore. Just Zira now. My family. We saw what you did. What you both did. My parents were political prisoners. They're free now, because of the revolution you started. The young Vrake bowed deeply. Thank you. Before either of us could respond, they hurried away, disappearing into the crowd. That's going to keep happening, isn't it? I said. Probably. Does it bother you? No. Does it bother you? I spent 50 years being feared. Being thanked is an adjustment. We found temporary quarters, 2 small rooms connected by a common area. It wasn't much, but it was ours, and more importantly, it was safe. That night, as the station's artificial day cycle dimmed to evening, we sat together watching the news feeds. The revolution was spreading, but so was the counter-revolution. The empire was splitting into factions. Some worlds embraced democracy. Others doubled down on authoritarian rule. It would be years, maybe decades, before things settled into a new normal. Do you think we did the right thing? Zyra asked. We did the only thing we could do, I replied. We chose each other over everything else. The rest, history will judge. I never expected this, she said. When I first saw you in that arena, you were just another human to execute. Another day's work. And then I thanked you. And then you thanked me, she agreed. Such a small thing to change everything. The small things usually do. The explosion came 3 weeks later. We'd settled into something resembling a routine on the station. Zyra had found work in the medical bay, her knowledge of anatomy serving a better purpose than it ever had in the arena. I'd signed on with a freight crew, flying short runs between the station and nearby systems. We'd meet in the evenings, sharing meals and stories, learning each other in ways that had nothing to do with survival. I was returning from a supply run when I saw the smoke billowing from our section of the station. My blood went cold. Zyra! I ran through the corridors, pushing past emergency responders and evacuating civilians. Our quarters were at the epicenter of the blast. Nothing left but twisted metal and char. Daniel! Her voice, from behind me. I spun to find her standing there, covered in dust but alive, medical kit in hand. I was at the medbay when it happened. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by suspicion. This wasn't an accident. No, she agreed, her eyes scanning the crowd. We need to move. Now. We grabbed what few possessions we'd managed to acquire and headed for the docks. But as we approached my freight shuttle, Zyra suddenly pulled me back. Wait. She pointed to a small device attached to the landing strut. Tracker. They found us. Who's they? Before she could answer, the station screens all flickered to life, displaying a face I'd hoped never to see again. Koresh's second-in-command, General Vorath, scarred and massive even by Vrake standards. Citizens of the station, his voice boomed through the speakers. You harbor fugitives. The terrorist Zira and the human Daniel Cross are responsible for the chaos consuming the Empire. Surrender them, and this station remains neutral. Refuse, and face the consequences. The crowd around us began to murmur, some backing away from us, others moving closer protectively. The revolution had created as many enemies as allies. We need to go, I said, now. But station security was already converging on our position. Not to arrest us, though. They formed a protective circle. Their captain, a grizzled Altarian, stepping forward. The station council has made their decision, he announced. Neutrality means we don't hand over political refugees. You want them, Vorath. Come and get them yourself. On the screens, Vorath's expression darkened. So be it. The connection cut, and alarms began blaring throughout the station. Battle stations, the captain barked. They're coming in hot. You two, with me. He led us to the station's command center, where chaos reigned. On the tactical displays, we could see them. 3 Vrake battlecruisers dropping out of hyperspace. We can't fight those, I said. We won't have to, the captain replied. Help is coming. The question is whether we survive until it gets here. The first salvo shook the entire station. Shields held, but barely. The second salvo would likely breach them. Daniel, Zira said quietly, pulling me aside. There's something I need to tell you. About Marcus. About why Koresh really had him killed. Now, really? If we don't survive this, you need to know. She took a breath. Marcus discovered something. Evidence that Koresh wasn't just a warlord. He was working with someone else. Someone who wanted the Empire destabilized. Who? That's what Marcus died trying to find out. But I think Vorath knows. That's why he's here. Not for revenge, but to silence us before we can figure it out. Another impact, stronger this time. The lights flickered. Shields at 30%, someone shouted. Where's that help? I demanded. The captain checked his displays. 5 minutes out. We don't have 5 minutes. Zira moved to one of the communication consoles. Yes, we do. She input a code I didn't recognize, and suddenly, she was broadcasting on all frequencies. General Vorath, this is Zira. I challenge you to single combat. If I win, you leave. If you win, you get both of us. No, I started, but she held up a hand. On screen, Vorath appeared again, his scarred face contemplating. The traitor wishes to die with honor? Very well. I accept. The attack stopped. Are you insane? I grabbed her arm. Vorath is twice your size and has a century of combat experience. I know. She turned to me, and there was something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Certainty. But he doesn't know what I learned from you. What's that? That sometimes the impossible happens. That broken ribs can be healed with a kick. That enemies can become lovers. That one person can change everything. She cupped my face with 2 of her hands. Trust me. An hour later, we stood in the station's central hub, which had been hastily cleared to create an arena. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Vorath stood at the far end, his 4 arms each holding a different weapon: sword, spear, axe, and mace. He looked like death incarnate. Zira stood beside me, armed with only 2 blades. The crowd pressed against the barriers, a mix of station residents and Vorath soldiers who'd boarded during the cessation of hostilities. You don't have to do this, I said. Yes, I do. This is bigger than us now. She looked at me. Whatever happens, Remember what I said. Find out who was really behind everything. She walked to the center of the makeshift arena. Vorath met her there, towering over her. You were Koresh's favorite, he rumbled. His perfect killer. He trained you himself. He did. Then you know you can't win. Koresh thought the same thing. Vorath's eyes narrowed. Begin. They moved simultaneously, and the clash of weapons rang through the hub. Vorath's style was overwhelming force, using his size and multiple weapons to create an impenetrable offense. Zira danced around him, deflecting rather than blocking, using his momentum against him. But she was being pushed back, cuts appearing on her arms, her breathing becoming labored. Vorath was simply too strong, too experienced. You're holding back, I whispered, recognizing the pattern. She was doing what she'd done with me in the arena, putting on a show while looking for an opening. Vorath seemed to realize it too. You think to trick me, little executor? I've been killing since before you were born. He pressed harder, his attacks becoming brutal rather than technical. Zira stumbled, one of her blades flying from her hand. The crowd gasped. Vorath raised his axe for the killing blow. That's when Zira smiled. She rolled forward, inside his reach, and drove her remaining blade not into Vorath, but into the floor. The station's gravity plating, damaged by the earlier attacks, fluctuated wildly. Vorath, mid-swing, suddenly found himself weightless. Zira, who'd been expecting it, used the momentum to launch herself at him. In zero gravity, size meant nothing. She wrapped herself around him, all four arms finding pressure points, and squeezed. Vorath thrashed, his weapons useless at such close range. They spun through the air, a deadly dance of violence and grace. But Zira held on, her knowledge of anatomy telling her exactly where to apply pressure. Finally, Vorath went limp, not dead but unconscious. The gravity returned gradually, and they fell to the floor. Zira stood slowly, breathing hard but victorious. The challenge is met, she announced. Leave, now. Vorath's soldiers looked at each other uncertainly. Their general was down, but not dead. The terms of the challenge had been satisfied, but barely. That's when the reinforcements arrived. Not Imperial forces, but rebel ships, dozens of them, dropping out of hyperspace with weapons charged. Thane's voice filled the hub. Imperial forces, you have 1 minute to withdraw or be destroyed. They withdrew, dragging Vorath with them. As his lieutenants carried him past us, he stirred slightly, his eyes finding mine. The human, he slurred. Ask about TerraCorp. Then he was gone, and we were left standing in a damaged station surrounded by questions. TerraCorp? I asked Zira. What's that? I don't know, she admitted, but we're going to find out. The investigation took months. We traced leads across 3 systems, following financial records, classified communications, and whispered rumors. What we found changed everything. TerraCorp was a human company, one of the mega-corporations that essentially ran Earth's off-world interests, and they'd been funding Koresh for years. It doesn't make sense, I said, staring at the data we'd compiled in our new ship, a gift from the rebellion. Why would a human company fund a Vrake warlord who was executing human prisoners? Unless, Zira said slowly. That was the point. Every execution broadcast across human space, building anger, resentment, preparing humanity for war. The pieces clicked into place. They wanted the Empire to fall, but not from rebellion, from human conquest. Create the enemy, then defeat them and look like heroes. Zira agreed. And in the chaos, TerraCorp positions itself to control the resources of 100 worlds. Marcus found out, and they made sure Koresh killed him before he could report back. I felt sick. My brother had died not because of alien cruelty, but because of human greed. We have to expose this, I said. To whom? The rebellion is barely holding together. Earth's government won't act against one of their biggest corporations. And the Empire? She shrugged. The Empire is gone. She was right. The Vrake Empire had shattered into dozens of factions. Some worlds had embraced democracy. Others had fallen into warlordism. The revolution we'd sparked had succeeded in destroying the old order, but hadn't yet built anything to replace it. Then we build something new, I said. Something that can stand against TerraCorp and anyone else who tries to profit from suffering. She looked at me skeptically. We're two people in a small ship. What can we do? We started a revolution by refusing to play our assigned roles. Maybe we can start something else the same way. Over the next year, we gathered others. Rebels who'd fought for ideals rather than power. Imperials who'd genuinely believed in order and justice. Humans who were disgusted by TerraCorp's actions. We formed a coalition, not of worlds or species, but of individuals committed to preventing another Koresh, another arena, another empire built on blood. TerraCorp noticed. Of course. They sent assassins, which we survived. They sent lawyers, which were honestly worse. They tried to buy us, threaten us, discredit us. But we'd learned something in that arena. Sometimes, refusing to break is enough. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Vorath, of all people, contacted us. I served Koresh loyally for 70 years. His message said, I believed in the Empire, in strength through order. But I was a fool. Koresh was never a leader. He was a puppet, and I helped hold his strings without knowing it. The evidence you need is in his personal archives on Thessic Prime. I've disabled the security. You have one day. It was obviously a trap. We went anyway. Thessic Prime was a dead world, bombed into sterility during the Empire's expansion. Koresh's archive was built into a mountain, a fortress of information. We landed under cover of a dust storm, Zyra and I moving through the ruins like ghosts. This feels familiar, I said as we approached the entrance. Except this time, we're choosing to walk into danger, she replied. Is that better or worse? Better. Choice always is. The archives were vast, but Vorath had been true to his word. The security was down, and we found what we needed quickly. Not just evidence of TerraCorp's involvement, but records of similar schemes going back centuries. Wars started for profit. Civilizations toppled for resources. Entire species driven to near extinction for market advantage. This is bigger than we thought, Zyra said, downloading everything onto multiple drives. Movement, I said, checking our sensors. Company's coming. Not TerraCorp mercenaries. Though, Vorath himself. Alone. Standing in the archive's main chamber. I wondered if you'd come, he said. Why? Zyra demanded. Weapons ready. Because I'm dying, he said simply. And I could see it now. The way he held himself. The pallor of his scales. Poison. Slow acting. TerraCorp's punishment for my failure at the station. I have perhaps a day left. Why help us? I asked. Redemption? Revenge? Does it matter? He laughed bitterly. I spent my life serving a lie. At least my death can serve a truth. He pulled out a datapad. This contains my testimony. Everything I know. Everyone involved. Use it. Zyra took the pad carefully. This won't absolve you. You killed hundreds. Thousands, he corrected. And no, it won't. But maybe it will prevent thousands more from dying. As we turned to leave, he called out. Zyra, you asked why Koresh kept you alive after your first refusal. It wasn't mercy. TerraCorp wanted someone like you. Someone who could be broken and remade. You were an experiment in control. And I failed. No. You succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. You broke free. You proved that even their most perfect weapon could choose differently. He settled onto the floor. His breathing labored. That terrifies them more than any revolution. We left him there, in the archives of his dead master, surrounded by the evidence of centuries of manipulation. The broadcast went out 3 days later. Every channel, every frequency, every network. Vorath's testimony, the archived evidence, our own story. The truth, ugly and undeniable. The reaction was immediate and violent. TerraCorp's stock crashed. Earth's government launched investigations. 3 corporate executives were arrested, though they'd probably never see trial. More importantly, the various factions of the former empire had a common enemy, something to unite against rather than each other. "We did it," I said, watching the news feeds from our ship. "Did we?" Zyra asked. "TerraCorp will survive this. They always do. And in a few years, people will forget. Some will, but not everyone. And that's enough." She turned to me. "Is it?" I thought about it. "It has to be. We can't save the universe. We can just make our corner of it a little better." A message came through, audio only. It was Thane. "The provisional government wants to offer you both positions. Daniel as liaison to Earth, Zyra as security advisor. Interested?" We looked at each other, a conversation without words. "Thanks," I replied. "But no, we're done with governments." "Then what will you do?" Zyra answered. "What we've always done. Survive. Together." The communication ended, and we were alone again. But not really alone. We had each other, and that was enough. "So," Zyra said, "where to now?" "You never did see an ocean." "No, I didn't. Earth's probably not safe for us. But there's a colony world. New Caledonia. Oceans that glow at night. Beaches with purple sand. Sound interesting?" "Sounds perfect." As we set course, I thought about everything that had happened. The arena, the revolution, the conspiracy. All of it stemming from that one moment when Zira's kick had fixed my broken rib. "Do you ever wonder," I asked, "what would have happened if that kick hadn't fixed my rib? If I hadn't thanked you?" "Every day," she admitted. "Such a small thing to change so much. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the big changes always start with something small. A kick, a thank you, a choice to be kind when cruelty is expected." Philosophy from a pilot? "I've had a good teacher." She laughed. That sound I'd grown to love. "I taught you to fight. You taught me more than that." We jumped to hyperspace, leaving the chaos behind. Ahead lay New Caledonia and its glowing oceans. Beyond that, who knew? The galaxy was vast and full of possibilities. "Zyra," I said as the stars stretched into lines around us. "Yes?" "That day in the arena, when you kicked my rib, was it really an accident?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. My conscious mind meant to hurt you, but something deeper, something I'd buried for decades. Maybe it remembered how to heal. Maybe it recognized something in you that reminded it of Marcus, of who I used to be." "So it was fate?" "No, it was choice. Every moment after that was choice. I chose to help you. You chose to trust me. We chose each other over everything else. And look where it got us. Hunted by corporations, exiled from our homeworlds, flying toward an uncertain future." "Free," I corrected. "Flying toward an uncertain future, but free." She reached over, taking my hand with one of hers. "I'll take free." The jump to New Caledonia would take 3 days. We had food, water, and each other. After everything we'd been through, it felt like wealth beyond measure. "Tell me about the glowing oceans," Zyra said. "Bioluminescent plankton. They light up when disturbed, so the waves glow blue-green in the darkness. Swimming through them is like moving through liquid starlight." "Can we swim together?" "I'd like that. Even though I have 4 arms? Especially because you have 4 arms. Better swimming efficiency." She laughed again. "Always practical." "One of us has to be." We settled into comfortable silence, watching the hyperspace flow. In a few days, we'd reach New Caledonia. We'd swim in glowing oceans, walk on purple beaches, build something resembling a life. TerraCorp would probably find us eventually, or some other threat would emerge. The galaxy was too dangerous for permanent peace. But for now, we had this. The quiet hum of the ship, the steady light of hyperspace, and each other. It was more than most people got. More than either of us had dreamed possible that day in the arena.
"Daniel," Zira said softly.
"Yeah?
"Thank you." "For what?"
"For seeing me as more than a monster. For believing I could be better. You were never a monster. You were a person forced to do monstrous things. There's a difference." "Is there?" "You're here, aren't you? A monster would have stayed in the arena, kept killing. You chose to leave."
"With you?"
"With me?" She squeezed my hand. "Best decision I ever made."
"Even better than kicking my rib?"
"That wasn't a decision. That was just the universe having a sense of humor."
"A painful sense of humor?"
"The best kind." We dropped out of hyperspace briefly to recalibrate navigation, and there it was. New Caledonia, a blue-green jewel hanging in space. Even from here, we could see the oceans that covered most of its surface.
"It's beautiful,"
Zira breathed. "Wait until you see it up close." "I can wait. Right here, this moment, it's perfect." I looked at her. This alien woman who'd become everything to me. Her purple skin caught the light from the planet, making her seem to glow. Her forearms were relaxed, no longer weapons, but simply part of her. Her eyes, those deep purple eyes that had first looked at me with cold professionalism, now held warmth I'd never imagined possible. "Yeah," I agreed. "It's perfect." We re-entered hyperspace for the final jump. In 18 hours, we'd land on New Caledonia. We'd disappear into its small population, become different people, build a life that had nothing to do with empires or corporations or revolutions. But we'd always carry the arena with us, not as trauma, but as reminder. A reminder that even in the darkest places, humanity could emerge, that enemies could become lovers, that a kick meant to cause pain could instead heal. "She kicked my broken rib to make me scream," I murmured.
"What?"
Zira asked.
"Just thinking about how I'd tell our story, if I ever had to."
"How would you tell it?" "I'd start with the truth. You kicked my broken rib to make me scream. But I'd end with a better truth."
"Which is?"
"You gave me the best gift ever. You gave me back my breath, my purpose, my life. You gave me yourself." She was quiet for a moment, then,
"That's a good ending." "It's not an ending. It's a beginning. Even better."
The stars flowed past, hyperspace carrying us toward our new life. Behind us, the galaxy churned with change, revolution and counter-revolution, truth and lies battling for supremacy. Ahead lay uncertainty, but also possibility.
"Daniel,"
Zira said.
"Yeah?"
"I love you."
They were words she'd never said before. Words that carried the weight of two species' history of conflict, of personal tragedy and redemption, of impossible odds overcome. "I love you too," I replied. And in that moment, in a small ship between the stars, two unlikely souls who'd found each other in the darkest of places proved that love was stronger than empires, stronger than hate, stronger than anything the universe could throw at them. The ship's computer chimed softly. 15 hours to New Caledonia. 15 hours until our new life began. But really, it had already begun. It had begun the moment Zira's kick had accidentally healed what was broken in me, and I'd started healing what was broken in her. Everything since had just been the universe's way of getting us here, to this moment, together.
"Tell me more about Earth," Zira said. "About rain and snow and all the things I've never seen."
So I did. I painted pictures with words of the world I'd left behind, while she shared stories of Vrake culture before the Empire, before the violence, when her people had been artists and philosophers as much as warriors. We were writing our own story now, free from the scripts others had tried to force on us. A human and of Rake, proof that the future didn't have to repeat the past. Outside, the stars continued their ancient dance, indifferent to our small drama. But we'd learned something important in that arena, in our flight across the galaxy, in our fight against powers greater than ourselves. We'd learned that small things could change everything. A kick, a thank you, a choice to trust. Such small things to reshape the galaxy. But then again, the biggest changes always started small. And our change, our small rebellion against fate and hatred, and the way things had always been, was just beginning. The water was warmer than I'd expected. New Caledonia's twin moons hung low over the horizon, and true to the stories, the ocean glowed. Every movement sent ripples of blue-green light spreading outward, like liquid aurora borealis. Zyra stood waist-deep in the luminescent waves, all four arms spread wide, her head tilted back to the star-filled sky. She'd been standing like that for 10 minutes, just experiencing it. "The light follows the movement," she said with wonder. "Like the water itself is alive." "In a way, it is. Billions of microscopic organisms, all lighting up in response to stimulation." She moved her arms through the water, watching the trails of light they left behind. "On my world, before the burning, we had something similar. Crystal caves that would sing when the wind passed through them. Different colors for different notes. My grandmother took me once, when I was very young. It was the first time she'd mentioned family from before her parents' execution. We'd been on New Caledonia for 3 months, and she was finally starting to unpack memories she'd buried for decades. "What happened to them? The caves?" "Bombed. The crystals were valuable for weapons manufacturing." She dove forward, disappearing beneath the glowing surface. When she emerged, she was laughing, light dripping from her, like she'd been dipped in stars. "But this is better. This is alive, present, now." I swam over to her, the water between us illuminating with each stroke. "No regrets about coming here?" "None. You?" "How could I regret this?" She pulled me close with 2 arms, while the other 2 kept us afloat. "We're being watched." I didn't turn to look. We'd noticed our observer 2 days ago. "TerraCorp?" "I don't think so. Too patient. TerraCorp would have acted by now." "Then who?" "Does it matter? We're not hiding anymore." She was right. We'd tried to disappear at first, taking assumed names, keeping to ourselves in the small coastal settlement. But word had spread anyway. The human, and the Vrek who'd killed a warlord, started a revolution, exposed a conspiracy. Some of the colonists treated us like heroes. Others kept their distance, suspicious of what trouble we might bring. "We should head back," I said. "The cafe opens early tomorrow." Zyra had found work at a local medical clinic while I'd taken a job at a beachside cafe. Simple work, honest work. Nothing to do with wars or empires or the fate of civilizations. As we walked back up the beach, our observer finally revealed himself. A human, elderly, wearing the simple clothes of a local fisherman. But his eyes were too sharp, his posture too straight for someone who'd spent his life hauling nets. "Daniel Cross, Zyra of Rake." We stopped, but didn't reach for weapons. We'd learned to distinguish between threats and curiosities. "You have us at a disadvantage," I said. "My name is Harrison Wells. was Marcus's commanding officer." The name hit me like a physical blow. Zyra's hand found mine, squeezing gently. "Marcus died 8 years ago," I said carefully. "I know. I'm the one who reported it as a training accident." Wells stepped closer, and I could see the weight of years in his expression. "I've been waiting for the right time to find you, to explain." "Explain what? That you lied about my brother's death?" "That I tried to save him." He pulled out a small device, a holographic projector. "May I?" Zyra nodded before I could respond. The projection showed Marcus, alive and well, in what looked like a military briefing room. My throat tightened seeing him again. "If you're watching this," Marcus's image said, "then things have gone very wrong. but also maybe very right. Danny, if it's you, know that everything I'm about to do is my choice. No one's forcing me. I discovered something. Something that could destroy any chance of peace between humans and the Vrek. TerraCorp has been playing both sides, funding extremists, arranging incidents. They want a war because war is profitable. The image shifted, showing documents, financial records. I'm going undercover, Marcus continued. Deep cover. I'll be listed as KIA, but I'll be trying to get inside TerraCorp's operation. If I succeed, I'll expose them. If I fail, well, then I really will be dead. But at least I'll have tried. He didn't know about the arena, Wells said quietly. We thought he'd been captured by regular Vrake forces. It wasn't until your broadcast that I learned the truth. You let me think he was dead for 8 years, I said, anger building.
It was his choice. He insisted. Said you'd try to find him if you knew, and that would put you in danger.
He was right, Zira said softly.
You would have.
There's more, Wells said. The projection changed again, showing a young Vrake female I didn't recognize. This is Kira, Marcus's daughter. The world tilted. I stared at the image, then at Zira, whose expression had gone completely still.
That's impossible, she whispered. We were careful. Different species can't.
Normally, no. But Marcus had been exposed to experimental gene therapy during a previous mission. It made certain things possible that shouldn't have been. Wells shut off the projector. She's 6 years old. She's been living with foster families, moved constantly for her safety. TerraCorp has been hunting her.
Why?
I managed to ask through the shock.
Because she's living proof that humans and Vrake can be more than enemies.
She's a symbol they can't allow to exist. Where is she? Zira's voice was deadly calm. Safe. For now. But TerraCorp is closing in. That's why I'm here. She needs protection. She needs family. I looked at Zira, saw the storm of emotions she was trying to contain. You knew. You knew Marcus had a child, and you kept her hidden. Marcus made me promise. If something happened to him, keep her safe, keep her secret. But after your broadcast, after what you did, I think he would want you to know. Both of you. Bring her here, Zira said immediately. Tonight. Wells shook his head. It's not that simple. TerraCorp has people everywhere. Moving her is dangerous. Not moving her is worse, I said. We've fought TerraCorp before. You expose them. That's different from protecting a child from their assassins.
We'll manage.
Wells studied us for a long moment. The Marcus I knew would be proud of what you've become, both of you. He gave us coordinates and a time, then disappeared into the darkness. Zira and I stood on the beach, the glowing waves lapping at our feet, processing what we'd learned.
Marcus had a daughter, she said finally. Our daughter. He never told me. He was protecting her, and you.
I would have died for her.
That's probably what he was afraid of.
She turned to me, and there were tears in her eyes. I'm going to be a mother. I don't know how to be a mother. I know how to kill, how to fight, how to survive. But a child. We'll figure it out together.
She's not your responsibility.
She's Marcus's daughter. That makes her family. And you're... I paused, realizing we'd never actually defined what we were. You're everything to me. Her mother. My partner. My future. If you'll have me. She kissed me then. Salt water and starlight and promise. I already have you. I've had you since that day in the arena. The next 72 hours were the longest of my life. We prepared carefully, turning our simple beach house into something defensible. Zira reached out to old contacts from the rebellion, arranging backup if needed. I contacted the few people I still trusted in what remained of the Alliance military. The night of the meeting, we arrived early at the coordinates Wells had given us. It was an abandoned processing plant on the edge of the colony, all rust and shadows. Perfect for an ambush. "I don't like this," Zira muttered, scanning the darkness with practiced eyes. "Neither do I." Wells appeared exactly on time, but alone. "There's been a complication." "Where is she?" Zira's voice could have cut steel. "Safe, but TerraCorp intercepted our communications. They know about the meeting."
It's a trap?
"No, an opportunity. They're coming here expecting to find the child. Instead, they'll find you." "You used us as bait?" I started toward him, but Zira held me back. "Wait." She was looking at Wells differently now. "You're not really Harrison Wells, are you?" He smiled sadly. "Wells died 3 years ago. I took his identity to protect Kira. My real name is Dr. Simon Chen. Chen, you're the geneticist who made the hybridization possible."
Accidentally, I was trying to help Marcus recover from radiation exposure. I had no idea it would allow. He gestured helplessly. When I found out about Kira, I felt responsible. I've been protecting her ever since.
"And now you're using us to draw out TerraCorp's hunters," I said.
Would you have agreed if I'd asked?
"Yes," Zira said immediately. "If it protects her, yes." Lights appeared in the distance. Multiple vehicles, moving fast.
They're here, Chen said. The child is in the colony's orphanage. Sister Catherine has been caring for her. When this is over, if you survive, she'll release Kira to you.
"When we survive," Zira corrected, checking her weapons. Chen handed me a data pad.
Everything about her. Medical records, photos, her favorite songs. Marcus recorded messages for her before he died. They're all here.
The vehicles were getting closer. "Go," I told Chen. "We've got this." He hesitated.
She has your brother's eyes, and Zira's spirit. She's extraordinary.
Then he was gone, and we were alone as TerraCorp's kill team surrounded the building.
How many?
I asked. 12 vehicles, probably 3 mercenaries each, plus drones. Zira actually smiled. "Remember the arena?" "Which part? The fighting for our lives or the falling in love?" "Both. Let's do both." They came in hard and fast, but we were ready. The first wave hit the traps we'd set. Improvised explosives made from industrial chemicals. The second wave met Zira in full combat mode. 4 arms wielding weapons with lethal precision. I provided cover from an elevated position, picking off mercenaries who tried to flank her. We'd fought together enough now that words weren't necessary. I knew where she'd move before she moved, and she trusted me to cover her blind spots. "Drones incoming!" I shouted, spotting the sleek shapes against the night sky. Zira grabbed a fallen mercenary's rocket launcher, firing in a smooth arc that took out 3 drones in one shot. "They're not trying to kill us." She was right. The attacks were meant to pin us down, not eliminate us. "They want us alive? They want leverage." That's when I understood. They weren't here for Kira. They were here for us. We were the symbols now, the faces of human Vrake cooperation. Capture us, break us publicly, and they could damage everything we'd built. "We need to end this fast," I said. "Agreed. Together?" "Together." We charged out of the building simultaneously, catching the mercenaries off guard. They'd expected us to stay defensive, to protect our position. Instead, we went on the offensive, cutting through their lines like we had through Koresh's guards. But these weren't arena guards. These were professionals, and they adapted quickly. Soon we were being pushed back, overwhelmed by numbers and firepower. That's when the lights appeared in the sky. Ships, dozens of them, bearing the mark of the Free Systems Alliance, the government that had formed from the rebellion we'd sparked. Thane's voice boomed from speakers. "TerraCorp mercenaries, you are in violation of New Caledonia's sovereignty. Surrender or be destroyed." They surrendered. Mercenaries were practical about such things. As the FSA forces rounded up the TerraCorp team, Thane himself landed. He looked older, worn by the responsibilities of leadership. We've been monitoring TerraCorp's communications, he said. When we detected this operation, we came as quickly as possible.
How did you know we were here? I asked.
We've always known. We just respected your desire for privacy. He looked between us. The child. She's really Marcus's daughter? And mine, Zira said firmly.
Then she's under FSA protection. TerraCorp won't touch her.
Protection comes with a price, I said. What do you want? Nothing. This is a debt repaid. You gave us our freedom. The least we can do is protect your family.
Family. The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning.
After Thane left, we went to the orphanage. Sister Catherine, an elderly human woman with kind eyes, was waiting for us.
She knows you're coming, she said. She's been having dreams.
Dreams?
About a woman with 4 arms who sings to her. About a man who looks like her father but isn't.
Sister Catherine smiled.
Children know things we don't.
She led us to a small room where a girl sat drawing. She was obviously mixed heritage, with Zira's facial structure, but human coloring. 4 arms, but only 2 of them fully developed. She looked up when we entered, and Chen had been right. She had Marcus's eyes. You're Zira, she said simply. My mother. Zira knelt down, bringing herself to the child's level. Yes.
And your Uncle Daniel. Father told me about you in the recordings.
He did.
She nodded solemnly.
He said you were stubborn but good, that you'd protect me if anything happened to him.
I will, I promised. We both will. Kira studied us for a moment, then held out one of her drawings. It showed 3 figures standing on a beach, one with 4 arms, under 2 moons.
I dream about this, she said. Is it real?
It can be,
Zira said, her voice thick with emotion.
Would you like to come live with us, by the ocean?
Will you teach me to fight?
If you want.
Will you teach me to heal?
Zira's breath caught. Yes, I'll teach you to heal. Kira stood up and took Zira's hand with 2 of hers, and mine with the other 2. Then yes, I want to come home. The word home broke something in Zira. She pulled Kira into a fierce hug, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I didn't know. It's okay, Kira said, patting Zira's back with all 4 arms. You're here now. We took her home that night. She fell asleep in the transport, curled between us like she'd always belonged there. Zira couldn't stop looking at her, drinking in every detail. She's perfect, she whispered. She's going to be a handful, I said. Marcus was stubborn. You're stubborn. That kid's going to be exponentially stubborn. Like someone else I know.
I'm not stubborn, I'm determined.
Is there a difference? Absolutely not. She laughed softly, careful not to wake Kira. What are we doing, Daniel? We're soldiers, not parents. We're whatever we need to be, whatever she needs us to be.
I love you, she said. I don't say it enough.
You show it every day. That's better. We settled into our new life as a family. It wasn't easy. Kira had nightmares about the family she'd lost, the constant moving. She was brilliant but wary, affectionate but careful. She tested boundaries constantly, seeing if we'd send her away like the others. We didn't. Zira threw herself into motherhood with the same intensity she'd once brought to combat. She learned to braid hair, to sing lullabies in both human and Vrake, to explain why the ocean glowed and how to make the pain of scraped knees go away. I taught Kira to swim, to navigate by the stars, to fix things that were broken. She absorbed everything like a sponge, asking questions that sometimes had no answers. Why did Father have to die? She asked one evening as we watched the sunset. He died trying to make the galaxy safer for you, I said.
Did it work?
I thought about the FSA, about the relative peace that had settled over former Imperial space, about humans and Vrake working together on a dozen worlds. Yeah, I said. I think it did. TerraCorp tried twice more to get to us. Both times. They failed. The FSA's protection held, and eventually, TerraCorp had bigger problems. The exposure of their manipulation had triggered investigations on Earth, and several executives were facing trial for crimes against humanity. On Kira's 7th birthday, we received an unexpected message. It was from Vorath, who we'd thought died in Koresh's archive. "I survived," his recorded image said. "The poison wasn't as effective as TerraCorp believed. I've spent the last year gathering evidence, finishing what your brother started. TerraCorp is finished. Their leaders are in custody, their assets frozen. The last of their mercenary forces surrendered yesterday." He paused, looking directly at the camera. "I know it doesn't undo the past. Nothing can. But perhaps it balances the scales slightly. Take care of the child. She represents the future we old warriors could never achieve." The message ended with coordinates and a single line. "If you ever need sanctuary, this place is yours." The coordinates led to a small moon in neutral space, legally transferred to our names. A gift from a former enemy, a place where Kira would always be safe if she needed it. "We should visit," Zira said. "Show Kira that even enemies can change." "Next year," I agreed, "when she's older." That night, as Kira slept between us, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. From that arena where Zira had kicked my broken rib, through revolution and revelation, to this quiet beach house where a hybrid child dreamed of tomorrow. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked Zira. "Not having a normal life?" "This is normal," she said. "For us, this is perfectly normal." She was right. Our normal included a daughter who was living proof that two species could be one family. Our normal was teaching her to defend herself while also teaching her to heal others. Our normal was standing against corporations and empires and anyone who threatened our strange, perfect family. "She kicked my broken rib to make me scream," I murmured. An old refrain that had become something like a prayer. "And gave you the best gift ever," Zira finished, as she always did. "No," I said, looking at our sleeping daughter. "She gave me two." The ocean glowed outside our window, and the future stretched ahead, uncertain but no longer frightening. We'd faced the worst the galaxy could throw at us, and emerged not just alive, but together. Tomorrow, Kira would wake up and ask 1,000 questions. She'd want to know why the sky was blue on this world but red on others. She'd want to practice the combat moves Zira was teaching her, and the meditation techniques I'd learned from